My notes have disappeared. Hang on, sorry, 2 seconds. There we go. Can everyone see that on the big screen there now?
Perfect, Catherine.
Fab. Okay, yeah, so we'll get started. Just to kind of reiterate what Richard said, thank you everyone very much for all your help last year. Yeah, we really couldn't have done it without you. So a big thank you from us, and to anyone new who's coming along, welcome. We're really happy to have you on board, because the more people we have out there.
Do you need it? I just want to check the pattern outside. Are you sure? Sorry, it'll be a while.
Sorry. Yeah, so I'll just carry on there. So the more people that we have.
Sorry, Catherine.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry, Catherine. Jane, if you're able to mute your mic, please, that would be really helpful. Thank you. Sorry, Catherine.
No, awesome. That's fine. Thank you. So yeah, so the main aim of this session is to kind of help you, give you the skills needed to spot those early signs of nesting, because the earlier that we can spot these signs, the more chances we can of giving them a bit of a helping hand throughout the season. So we'll just crack on. So you probably already know about ring plovers, but I just thought I'd cover a little bit of background information about them for people who are not too familiar with them. They're a small wading bird that we do get in Northumberland all year round. Their numbers swell in the winter when we get birds returning from their breeding grounds in the north. They come to tropical Northumberland to spend their winter from their breeding grounds, so they'll breed in the high Arctic and places like that. So yeah, Northumberland is a bit tropical for them compared to where they're used to. They'll breed on sand, shingle, and loose pebbles anywhere between mid-April and August. This can vary. So our first nest last year was recorded on the 23rd of April, but the fledglings, the last fledglings to leave their area, didn't leave until the 1st of September. So that's a very long season. And that's because ring plovers, they're quite tenacious birds. So if their first nesting attempt is unsuccessful, they'll have a second or third, possibly even a fourth attempt at having a successful nest. So that's how their season can push on. But obviously we want that first clutch of eggs to be successful, because the longer they leave it, the busier the beaches get. They start kind of pushing into school holiday territories and peak tourist season. So we really want to try and get that first clutch away. They form breeding territories, which are very sporadic up and down the coast. They are extremely territorial birds. For their size, they're extremely fierce. They do not tolerate any other bird coming anywhere near their territory, whether that's another ring plover or another wading bird. They'll sort of puff their feathers up, and they'll make themselves look quite big, and they'll charge at that intruder to try and get them away from their territory. They're full of character. They're absolutely brilliant birds. I love them so much. But when they will rely on, when they will tolerate other birds in their territories, is when they'll nest with Arctic tern colonies or little tern colonies. So at the Long Nanny or Lindisfarne NNR, for example, they'll benefit from the terns driving away any predators that'll come anywhere near their nest. But a big, loud, smelly colony does have its negatives. It obviously attracts lots of predators. So by being territorial and relying on their camouflage to keep them safe from predators, and it kind of just shows on this photograph on the right here just how well camouflaged these birds are. So just in the middle there, just to the right of this rock, is a ring plover sitting on its nest. You can just kind of make out its black markings on its nest, but yeah, they are extremely camouflaged birds, and they really rely on that to help them throughout the season. But unfortunately, the ring plovers are not doing very well at the minute. Their non-breeding population has declined by 50% in the past 25 years, which is a really scary statistic. And their breeding population is red listed for conservation concern. So that's the main aim of these surveys, is to help us protect as many of these nests as we can. The surveys will help us locate potential breeding sites before the nest is being made. So when I mentioned that they form these breeding territories, they'll establish their territories, but they won't actually start nesting for maybe 2 or 3 weeks after that territory has been established. So if we can spot these birds on their territories, it'll give us a bit more time to kind of plan what we're going to do in terms of fencing, signage, whether we can intervene and put that fencing up. So it just gives us a little bit more breathing space to get our plans together. So yeah, the earlier in the season we can find that nest, the higher the chances of success. So I just thought I'd cover ring plover ID and what to look for when you're trying to spot ring plovers in the field. So the birds on the right here, this is the gorgeous male bird and his lovely breeding plumage. Those very sort of distinctive black markings around its neck, across its eyes, where it gets its name from, the ring plover, is really what we're looking for when we're looking amongst wading birds to try and pick out the ring plovers. It does kind of separate the male and female birds on this diagram here, but in the field it can be really tricky to tell the male and female birds apart. The female bird, the markings are not quite as bold as the male, but yeah, it's really quite tricky to tell the difference in the field. And then the juvenile birds on the left of the screen there, obviously they don't have those, the markings are there, but they're not quite as bold and defined as the adult birds. This graphic that I've taken from the Collins Bird Guide app, I have this on my phone. I find it really, really useful. So I do recommend, if you're looking for a portable bird guide, downloading this onto your phones. I use it pretty much every day when I'm out and about. It's absolutely brilliant. But also the Collins Bird Guide, like the actual book, is also fantastic as well. So if you're looking for ID books, then I recommend the Collins Bird Guides. So there are a couple of birds that the common ring plover may be confused with. The first bird that I'll mention is the little ring plover. They do look very similar. Obviously, the little ring plover has that lovely bright yellow ring around its eye, and the bird just kind of looks a bit more elegant. You see the legs are a bit longer, but please don't get too confused about this, because we're very, very unlikely to see little ring plover on the coast. We do get them in small numbers in Northumberland, but they prefer breeding inland on sort of gravel and next to rivers. So the birds that we see are very likely to be the common ring plover. But I just thought I'd mention it here just so you can kind of spot the differences between them. Dunlin and summer plumage may be a little bit confusing, similar size, probably be in similar places. Their summer plumage, they've got a lovely black spot on their chest, but they do lack those facial markings as well, and the bill is a lot longer. It's a lot longer than the ring plover as well, so don't get confused with that. And similarly for the sandling, summer plumage sandling have got that gorgeous brown Albany tinge to their back feathers. Again, being similar habitat, similar size, but it's those facial markings that we're looking out for, so keep your eyes for that. Turnstone, so in the photograph there, they do actually look quite similar facial markings, similar black markings around its neck, but the turnstones are going to be in a different habitat. They prefer rocky shore, whereas the common ring plover will be on sand. But also the turnstones, they're a bit bigger, they're a bit more robust than the ring plover as well. But the birds that I've just mentioned there, Dunlin, Sandlin, Turnstone, they leave Northumberland to head for their breeding grounds in the high Arctic, so Arctic Canada, Arctic Greenland. So we're going to see the birds maybe in very small numbers that are maybe first year birds and non-breeding birds, or they've gone up to the Arctic and they've failed for whatever reason and they've come back a bit earlier. So we will see very small numbers, but not in the big numbers that we're used to seeing over the winter. Other things to look out for when you're doing your surveys, so look for colour rings that the birds may have. So this photograph of the ring plover on the left there, that has 4 colour rings on its legs. We spotted this at Boomer this year, but it was also there at last year as well. And we found some information about the bird, and this was ringed as an adult female from a breeding colony in northern Germany. So it's really interesting to get a bit more background of the bird, and it's a bit more about his life history. And the photograph on the left, on the right, sorry, you may be able to make out that there is a metal ring on the ring plover's legs there. This photograph was taken by me at Del Point at Beadnell last year. It was a female bird, so it'll be really interesting to see if that bird comes back this year. It kind of gives us a bit more information about, are the same birds returning to these nest sites each year? Is it the female bird or the male bird that's coming back to the same territories? We're just not sure. So yeah, keep an eye out for any of those kind of distinguishing features that you may see. Oh, so I'm just going to have a quick drink. So when you come to do your surveys, we'll come onto the Survey 123 app in a couple of slides' time, but we're going to be asking you to record the breeding behaviour that you see. So I thought I'd break down those categories just to kind of talk a little bit more about what behaviour you're likely to see at each stage of the breeding stage. So the pair observed in suitable nesting location. As mentioned before, they breed on sand, shingle, loose pebbles. So if you have those kind of habitats in your survey area, do kind of really give them a look over to see if you can spot the ring plovers in that area. Like I say, they're quite well camouflaged, so do give it some time, spend a bit of time looking out for the birds. The birds might not actually be doing very much in that area at that time, so they might just be sort of standing maybe close to each other, having a bit of a preen, feeding around the area. But that's a good indication if we see that they're on territory and that they're potentially going to nest there. So if you record that behaviour, it allows us to kind of keep an eye on that site and see what the birds are doing. Are they going to start nesting? And we can be prepared with what we're going to do. Courtship and display. So this is the pair bond strengthening. They might be standing next to each other in the area, maybe calling to each other. You might see them mating, and that's obviously a very clear sign that that's where they're going to nest. So do record that if you see that kind of behaviour. Agitated behaviour or anxious calls from the adults, that suggests that the birds are defending their territory. That alarm call is my top tip for when you're doing the surveys, is really make yourself familiar with that alarm call, because they're so camouflaged. Often the first signs of the birds being nearby is that alarm call. So if you do hear that, sort of take a few steps back, see what's going on, see if you can see the birds. But yeah, if they're agitated, you may be a bit too close, take a few steps back, but they're probably defending that territory. So another good indicator that the birds are nesting in the area. Nest scrape construction. So we call a ring plover or a wader nest a scrape because that's what they are. It's just they dig the sand away and they lay their eggs directly onto the sand. They'll lay a series of dummy scrapes within their territory, which is just the birds kind of testing out the area to see where they're going to actually lay their eggs when it's ready to happen. They'll lay 4 eggs, up to 4 eggs. We call that a full clutch. And they'll usually lay 1 egg a day, and they'll start incubating when they've laid their 3rd egg. And that's just so that all the eggs develop at the same time. And then the last thing they want is for a chick to hatch and for it to be out running around. They have to keep an eye at it, but they also have to keep incubating eggs at the same time. So they want to just make sure that that all those eggs are developing at the same time. If you see the bird sitting on the ground like this one here is, and it stays there for an extended period of time, it's a good indication that they are actually incubating their eggs. The male and female birds will both incubate the eggs. So the male bird might be off feeding, it'll come back, it'll take over the incubation duties, and the female will go off and feed for herself as well. So if you see that, you can kind of say, sorry, excuse me. Sorry, I'm not feeling too well at the minute, so I might keep having to stop to take a little bit of a drink. But yeah, so if you see the birds swapping over, there will be an option on the Survey 123 to say that that's a confirmed nest, so you can tick that. But we like to stress, please don't then go and look. If you see this bird sitting, don't go and look to see if you can find any eggs. Just make all your observations from afar so we don't cause any disturbance to the birds. If the birds are disturbed, if a predator comes anywhere near their nest or their chicks, They are absolutely fantastic parents, and they will do anything that they can to draw attention to the bird rather than their eggs or their chicks. So they'll make themselves very obvious. They'll be shouting, alarm calling, possibly even flapping their wings, maybe pretending to have a broken wing, just to make them very, very obvious to the predator. So the predator pursues the adults while either the chicks get a chance to run away and hide, or the eggs are kind of overlooked in that situation. This could also involve the adults flying around in circles. So if I've had to go near a nest to put the fence posts back up or put a chick shelter out, for example, the bird has kind of flown in circles around me and alarm calling the whole time, keeping my attention on the bird rather than its eggs close by. So yeah, do look out for the distraction display as well. I'm just going to take another quick drink there, sorry. So the nest protection areas that we have 3 planned nest protection areas that we're going to be setting up this year. So one at Linemouth, one at Buston Links, and one at Embleton. There's pros and cons of setting up a pre-planned nesting area. Obviously, we'll put all the fencing out, and you know for sure that the bird is going to nest 2 or 3 meters just outside of the fencing. It happened last year at Linemouth, but once the fencing is up, it's a lot easier to handle, and we can quickly make alterations so that the bird's nests are protected. But it also kind of just raises awareness to the public that something's going on in the area, so they're aware of it before the birds actually start nesting, so they know to give those areas space. But the data that's collected through the surveys that you guys will be doing will help us create kind of pop-up nest protection areas, sort of reactive to the data that's coming through. We use a combination of non-electrified flexi netting and signage. Sorry, excuse me. So yeah, we use a combination of non-electrified flexi netting and signage. This is mainly to keep people and dogs away from the nesting birds. It's not going to keep most predators out. It may deter the larger ground predators, so foxes, it might deter them, but it's not going to stop aerial predators or the smaller sort of stoats and rats getting in. But again, by nesting on their own in these territories, they're keeping themselves nice and, you know, sort of hidden from the predators, and they're camouflaged amongst the habitat they're nesting in. And chick shelter, so there's a photograph of the chick shelter there that we used at Embleton last year. We will judge each area as an individual area whether we're going to put chick shelters out or not. We used this one at Embleton last year because there wasn't a huge amount of cover for the chicks. So if the weather turned a bit unfavourable, so it was really windy or it was really rainy, the chicks didn't really have anywhere to cover from those elements. But thankfully they timed it absolutely spot on, so they had a really nice sunny spell of weather, and the only time that we saw the chicks using these shelters was to get some shade from the hot sun. So that was nice to see that. But predators like crows and kestrels are so savvy. They will watch the areas from afar, and if they see chicks using these shelters, they'll just come in, land on top of the shelters, and pick the chicks off as they're running out. So we have to be really careful when we use these chick shelters, and we'll do that. We'll judge that as if and when we think that they'll be needed. So I just put a quick slide in here about other birds to look out for when you're out and about doing your surveys. Oyster catchers are another ground nesting wading bird. They will nest in a similar breeding location, so rocky platforms, shingle, loose pebbles. They're obviously a bigger bird, so their eggs are bigger, but the signs of nesting are very similar to the ring plover, so being quite territorial. And they're obviously a bigger bird. They're very vocal at the best of times, never mind when they're trying to defend their territory. So they will make it very obvious that they're trying to nest nearby. It's unlikely that we'll see it on the coast. They prefer sort of going inland, up along rivers and things like that. But I just thought I'd mention it here just to keep your eye out. There might be a small chance that we'll see oyster catchers nesting. So I've mentioned Arctic tern and little tern here as well. Obviously, we know that the Arctic terns nest at the Long Nanny and up at Lindisfarne in and out as well. And for whatever reason, should those colonies fail, they might choose to try and look elsewhere to nest. So do keep your eye out for those birds if you're doing your survey area, especially around areas where there's been sort of pre and post tern roost. Breed and roost for the terns. Do keep your eye out for that. Note for the Arctic terns, their ID, I mean, they can be quite tricky to distinguish, but they have the long tail streamers, and their bill is bright red. They don't have any black on their bill, whereas the common tern and the roseate tern do. But yeah, I mean, it's quite tricky to do that. You've got to get quite good views. And the little tern as well, we are absolutely desperate to get another breeding site for little terns in Northumberland. They are the second rarest nesting seabird in the UK, and for good reason. I mean, their numbers they're not doing quite very well as a population. They don't nest in the most sensible of habitats, but often that's because they're pushed out to the unfavourable habitats by the Arctic terns. For example, at the Long Nanny, the Arctic terns, because they're bigger, they kind of bully the little terns out to the edges, and that leaves them vulnerable to washing by high tides. But yeah, we did see a few signs of little terns prospecting a couple of the other sites last year. So we'll keep our eyes out for that, and you do the same, and let us know if you think you have seen a little tern showing good interest in one of the other sites. So for the methodology for our surveys, we are asking for you to walk your survey area at least once a month between March and July. This will give us a really good chance of spotting that early nesting behaviour. If you can do more, if you would like to do more throughout the season, that's absolutely fine. But once a month is kind of what we're asking for the methodology. And then during those surveys, record the presence and behaviour of any ring plovers you see using the Survey 123 app, which I'm going to come on to talk to in a couple of slides' time. If you think that you have a pair that are nesting, that they've laid their eggs inside your survey area, but they're not protected, please let us know. Obviously, we're keeping an eye on the data that's coming through on our GIS mapping system from the result of this survey. But if you could let us know, either send us a message, give us a call, just so we're really aware of that, and we can kind of react quite quickly to that, just so we don't want any damage to happen to those nests in the meantime. But as a key sort of part of the methodology is to always do your observations of these ring plovers from afar. Look for the signs of agitated behaviour and listen for alarm calls as suggestions that you might be a little bit too close to the birds. Because they're territorial, they're out on their own, they are very susceptible to disturbance. So yeah, please do not approach the pair of ring plovers or an area that you think they may have nested in, because the photograph on the slide here shows just how camouflaged those tiny little eggs are. So they're very easily missed. And if you are further away from the birds when you're observing their breeding behaviour, the more chances you are of actually seeing that natural behaviour. So if you're too close, they're just not gonna sort of do the kind of vulnerable behaviour of mating or courting, and also it might kind of just push the birds off their area completely. So yeah, we recommend staying at least 30 to 40 metres away from the birds and doing the observations from afar. So the Survey 123 app, people who did the surveys last year may already have this downloaded on their phone, but the first thing to do is download the app from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. If you've got an iPhone or Android, it works with both. Once you've got that downloaded on your phone, we'll send you an email with a link to the survey on. So if you click that link in the email, that'll open up the app automatically, and then you click the continue without signing in option on the bottom there. No need to sign in, we don't have any logins or anything, so just clicking continue without signing in, that'll bring you to the My Survey 123 page. I've got a few different surveys on there already, but the one that you're looking for is that shore nesting bird survey. And if people had this downloaded last year, when you click on the survey, it might prompt you to update the survey. We've made 1 or 2 little tweaks, so update that survey and then you'll be ready to go. So yeah, bird nesting survey is the one that we're looking for. And when you click on that, this is what you'll see. So there'll be a little bit of information on the top of the page about the survey, but then it's quite self-explanatory. So pop your name in the top there. The location will be tracking where you are automatically, so you shouldn't need to do any adjustments to that. Pop the survey area reference in, which is just the name of your survey sector, and we'll come on to that in the next slide. But then pop in the species that you've seen, probably mostly be ring plover, but maybe the others as well. The behaviour that we saw, so that's what we've just covered. And there's also the option of adding a photograph, and the photograph is for photographs of the scenery. It's not for photographs of the bird. Please don't try and take photographs of the birds, because you're not going to be able to get close enough to get a photo of them without causing the birds disturbance. So say if you think you've seen a pair observed in suitable nesting location, for example, try and take a photograph of that location with any notable features, so a notable sand dune, or there might be a log on the strand line, or a bit of driftwood, or something notable that'll help us really pick out exactly where that is on the within your survey sector. And then once you've done that, if you click the tick that's in the bottom corner, that'll send your survey to us, and it'll come through on our map, and we'll be able to see exactly where the surveys have been done. This is a list of the survey sectors that we are going to be asking for people to cover. I think Mark will help assign the survey areas to you, but it's got on there the northern grid reference and the what 3 word, which is the start point, and the southerly grid reference is the end point, or the other way around, however you want to do it. But that tells you exactly the areas to look for. Yeah, like we say, if you could do walk your survey area at least once a month between that time scale, and record any activity that you see. Please don't be discouraged if you don't see any ring plovers within your survey sector. So if not all survey sectors are going to contain suitable breeding location, but we never know. So it's important to keep an eye on these areas. So if you don't see any ring plovers on the first 2 surveys, that's not to say that they're not going to turn up later on in the season, because they might have been pushed off from a different area if they've been unsuccessful, or they're being continuously disturbed. So do keep doing the surveys all the way throughout the season, because you just never know when these birds are going to turn up. So tracking survey effort is just our way of saying we just want to make sure that all of the survey sectors are being covered. We don't want to miss any of the nesting attempts. So we'll be working with Mark and a lead volunteer to help us with this. So they will be kind of keeping a track on the surveys that are being done. And if there's data missing for whatever reason, they can sort of contact you or us to just ask, is the survey going to be done? If it's not going to be done, that's absolutely fine. Like, we totally understand that circumstances change, and that you're not going to be able to do a survey every month. That's absolutely fine, but we need to know, just so that we can kind of plan for that, and myself or Richard can cover the survey area, or another volunteer can pick that up. So yeah, do let us know if for whatever reason you're not going to be able to do the survey, and we can get it covered. So once the eggs have been laid, we watch and we wait. The female and adults will take turns to incubate their eggs for about 3 weeks, so 21 to 23 days. And within that time, we will be asking for help to monitor these nests. So we might have, hopefully we'll have quite a few different nests up and down the coast, so we want to make sure that they're kind of all being monitored as often as they need to be. So the main duties for monitoring a ring plover nest are mainly to talk to people who are in the area. Just because we've put the fencing out there, it doesn't mean that if people walk up to the fence and the ring plovers aren't going to be disturbed on the nest. So it's very important that we talk to people and ask people to give the nest protection areas space. So that's sort of just telling them about the birds. And like Richard mentioned, people are so interested in what's going on that they often come back to see what's happening. But yeah, they are very interested and usually very, very supportive. So yeah, it's just kind of talking to people about what's going on. If people are constantly going up to that fencing and the birds are continuously moving off their eggs, it leaves them vulnerable to trampling, potentially predation, chilling from the elements. If it's a rainy day or it's really windy, those eggs can get cold really quickly, and that obviously is not good for the eggs, and they can be lost that way. Or if it's really windy, they could be covered in sand and again chilled. So yeah, keeping the adults on the eggs at all times is really important. Other duties will be to, maybe there might be some fence posts that have fallen down, it's just popping them back up quickly. Or being a human scarecrow, it was quite a big job, just kind of keeping predators, crows mainly, possibly kestrels, away from the eggs, just kind of flapping your arms and shooing them away. It does normally do the trick. We noticed last year that the birds that nested in slightly busier areas obviously maybe had to contend with a little more disturbance from people walking past, but that actually kept predator numbers down. So the constant movement of people kept the crows from settling, and they weren't unable to kind of home in on where these chicks were, where the nests were. So, you know, a little bit of disturbance from the public may actually do the birds a little bit of good in terms of keeping the predators away, but you know, there's that fine balance between that. And when the chicks hatch, the fun really does begin. The adults will brood the chicks. So when they're sitting on the nest, the very first signs that the chicks have hatched, the birds will be a little bit more fidgety. Their wings might be splayed out a little bit more, but that's a good sign that there's chicks hiding underneath their plumage. But the birds are precocial, which means after a couple of hours, they can support their own body weight, and they'll be up and they'll be out exploring their area, feeding for themselves. They are very you know, the birds are, they can range quite far, which can be quite a bit of a heart and mouth moment when you see just how far away the chicks are from the parents. But they're always in constant communication with the parents. They're very responsive. So like the adults sitting on the nest relying on that camouflage, the chicks are also relying on camouflage to keep them safe. So the parents will say, get down, stay safe, stay hidden, don't move a muscle, there's a predator, there's a crow nearby, and the chicks will respond to that, which is really, it's quite nice to see. We saw last year a kestrel landed right on the shingle right next to where the birds were nesting at Druridge Bay, and we thought, this is it, they're goners. But because the parent was saying, stay down, stay safe, don't move a muscle, the kestrel couldn't actually see where the chicks were, even though they were only a couple of meters away. And those chicks survived and they went on to fledge, thankfully. But that was that was a really scary moment. But yeah, just shows how much they are relying on this camouflage. They are wading birds, so their natural food source is by the water. So that's where they're going to want to be, and that often means heading down the beach to the sea. We were really lucky at Embleton that we were able to fence off a stretch of the burn that was running down the beach, so that kind of kept that safe, so they could still go to the water, but were protected from passers-by. But that's not always the case for all the nest sites. But what was really encouraging last year was to see that the birds obviously didn't recognise the fencing as a structure in itself, but what we did notice was that they were using the area as a place where they hadn't been disturbed and where they seemed to feel quite safe. So when the chicks did come out of the fencing and someone was coming along the beach, the parents called them back to the safety of the nest protection area, and they were really responsive to that. So that was very encouraging to see. And the chicks will mostly stay within the fencing during the busier times of the day because there's constantly people walking past the area. It's usually more early morning or in the afternoons when the beach is a lot quieter, when the chicks will go for a little adventure down to the beach. But like I say, the parents are very, very good at calling them back to the nest protection area. And this is just a couple of photographs of the chicks from last year. So that first photograph on the left there, that's a 4-day-old chick from Embleton that's responding to a call from its parents to get down, stay hidden. You can see it is quite well hidden amongst the dry seaweed and the marram roots there. The photograph in the middle, that's a week-old chick at Druridge Bay, a little bit older. It's standing up, but it's having a good explore. This was actually just outside of the nest protection area. And then this chick on the right, when staying safe and staying hidden doesn't always work, is when the birds are trying to hide in lush green vegetation. So yeah, this bird was it just ventured too far away from the nest protection area, right next to the entrance to the beach from the public footpath. And Richard was there that day. I think he was having a bit of a panic when he saw this, but thankfully the birds were called back when the coast was clear, back to the safety of its parents in its nest protection area. So similarly to the monitoring the nest protection areas, we will be asking for people to help us with chick watch. Like I say, chicks are very mobile. They will leave the safety of the nest protection area sometimes. So it's important that we talk to members of the public again, just asking people give the nest protection area space, just so the birds are not disturbed. And like Richard mentioned again, that people were so interested in what was happening. They were coming back every day, every other day to see what was happening. So people are really interested and very, very supportive. But yeah, similar to the nest monitor, you can pop up any fallen fence posts and scare away any predators. But yeah, we'll be popping more details about these kind of tasks on the system later on in the season, so do keep your eye out for more tasks that will be coming up later on. So looking for signs of fledgling, it takes about 23 to 25 days for the chicks to fledge, which will seem like a lifetime when you're just really willing these birds to be able to be independent. They'll start to make test flights, which is usually happens outside of the nest protection area, where they've got a bit more room to really stretch those wings and test what they can do. We class a fledgling as a long sustained flight for about 50 meters. That's obviously a bit subjective, but if we see when we're confident that the bird can fly away from danger rather than rely on running away, scurrying up the beach, then we're kind of confident that the birds can be classed as a fledgling. But they will stick to the area, they'll stick close to their parents for a couple of days after, just to benefit from that safety before they head out into the big bad world. A couple of photographs of the fledglings here. So this first photograph on the left, that was a couple of days before fledging. You can see the textured pattern on its wings there, and it's just starting to get those black facial markings and the black ring. But this photo on the right, it's either the same bird or its sibling from Embleton on the day that it actually fledged. So they were right down by the water's edge at low tide. And, you know, I was obviously having a bit of a panic, as you do when you see the bird so far away. But then it just took to the air and flew all the way back up to the top of the beach to the nest protection area. So I thought, oh, they're fine. They've fledged. And then this photograph in the middle is the chick a couple of days after fledgling from Druridge Bay. You can really see it's getting those facial markings on its face there, and it's also getting that the orange tinge to its bill as well. So yeah, really nice to see these birds doing so well. So that's the end of the sort of online session. I hope I've covered everything that you'll need to know, but if not, obviously we'll come on to any questions at the end. To follow on, we have a field session next week at Beadmill, and we'll just recap a little bit about ring plover ID and the behaviours to look out for. We had 2 or 3 pairs nesting at Beadmill last year. So we're hoping that the birds will come back to that site again this year, and maybe they're already back and they're starting to look for those areas for forming the territories. So we might see some good action there. But we'll be looking at the habitat types in a bit more detail, just to kind of show what to look out for. So thank you all very much for coming in and tuning in to the session. I really wish you all the very best of luck during your surveys. If you have any questions throughout this season, here are our contact details. Please make a note of them. Yeah, and hopefully we'll answer any questions that you have or any queries. Or yeah, like I say, if you think that you've got a bird on eggs in your survey area and they're not being protected, please let us know straight away as soon as you can. But yeah, I'll hand back over to Richard and hopefully we'll answer any questions that you might have now.
Thank you very much, Catherine. That was really interesting. I relived some really nice memories there, but also some heart-stopping memories as well.
Yeah.
So that was great. Yeah. So does anybody have any questions or thoughts or at all? No, I mean that's great. I think that sort of indicates that you've done a really thorough job there, Catherine. So I think the other thing is if you have any questions right the way through, our contact details are on our website. Catherine's mentioned them there. We want to be accessible to yourselves and support yourselves as people that are doing the good work out there looking for the birds. And just to reiterate what Catherine said, you might do surveys and not see anything for 2 or 3 months, but on the 4th month, 5th month, you might see that nesting behaviour and just keep at it. It could be easy to be discouraged, but even when we get in a negative result and we're not getting the birds in that area, that's important because that shows us where the birds are and where the birds aren't, and which is just as important. So yeah. Do you have any other thoughts, Mark, or is it?
No, thank you very much, both of you, for putting that on and for explaining everything to it. Obviously, we've got the day next week, the live one at Beadnell, but a lot of the stuff will be covered there, so don't feel like if you can't make it to that, don't feel like you need to make it to both. The stuff will cover, and then once we've got that session done, we'll try and split up areas. Really, we'll try and do it geography to where you are, if that's all right, unless you've got a predisposition to go to one end of the county to the other. But we'll try and split it up so it's suitable to where you're living somewhat. Obviously, we'll kind of take everybody's attention, but the more hands, the more eyes, the better on the ground, really. So there'll definitely be more for scope for stuff locally. We've got quite a good spread now with people from up and down the county, so from Berwick to Druridge, I know that, so that's good. But thank you very much, both of you, for putting that on. Thank you all for listening.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put the recording on once Richard and Catherine send it through. We'll put it back on the link on Better Impact. I'll send it out to everybody, so you have all got a copy if you want to refresh yourselves with stuff. Thank you very much.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Okie dokie. Enjoy your afternoon.
Bye.
You as well.
Yeah,
Thanks very much.
bye bye now. Thank you.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.